Welcome back everyone to the weekly Mailbox. It's nice to speak to you all. It's been a pretty manic week. I'm afraid to say I'm a bit bogged down with coursework at the moment, but I suppose it's keeping me busy, but sadly it's keeping me away from making videos. So once it's out the way, I'll be back. And I've got lots planned, lots of new things, lots of fresh things just to keep things going. But I think it'll be for the better. I don't know, we will see, but today, the action of the day, the mailbox, the weekly mailbox, your chance to ask me questions about absolutely anything you would like. If you want to ask a question for next week's episode, comment section down below, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. But question number one comes from Rico Natter, who asks, what is your favourite livery from the past decade? I'm not going to lie, this is an awesome question. I believe I have picked it before for a audience participation question, but I want to go. I want a chance to do it. And actually, only last night, I caught Tomo F1's video, his top 10 tier list of the best liveries of the decade. I think it was the decade. I think it was 2010 to 2020, I think it was. If you haven't seen any of his stuff, he is crushing the game at the moment, so I would definitely recommend having a look at his channel. But I really wanted to do it myself. And when I was going through the questions today from the mailbox and saw this one, I thought, yeah, I've got to give that a go. So, whilst I've not done a sexy looking tier list like Tom did, I'm going to do a top 10. I've tried to put it in order, but it's difficult. Also, honourable mentions to the 2019 Mercedes. I think that's the best looking Mercedes from the last 10 years. The 2020 Haas. I know, I really wanted to put it in, but I've put in another Haas, so I tried to do one from each team. And also the 2020 Alfa Romeo, that's a really nice looking car. I'll go through it quick, then we'll crack on with the other 4 questions. But in 10th place, I've gone with the 2013 McLaren. Not the best on-track performances, but I really do miss that chrome and Vodafone red livery. Love that one. In P9, I've gone for a slightly controversial looking car, but we're basing this on liveries. The 2014 Caterham. I'm an absolute sucker for a dark green livery, and I think this was the best of the Caterham / Lotus cars we saw. I didn't really like the yellow that the Lotus and some of the Caterhams had in it. This one, predominantly green, bit of white, bit of me, but we all know that nose is vile. I will get that off on screen right away. P8, the 2016 Williams. Take your pick, really, for any of the Martini Williams cars. I really like them, and I miss them. And I think this year's Williams ain't too bad, but I prefer the Martini one. Probably just me, but I really quite like that one. P7, a slightly different one. 2017 Toro Rosso. I think we can all agree it's a nice livery. It's one, as we know, with the Red Bull livery we see most seasons, but this was the year we got our first look at the lighter blue and silver version compared to the purpley gold version we saw beforehand. I really quite like this one, and I'm slightly gutted it's gone for 2020, but don't worry, what it's been replaced with will be on the list a little bit later on. Number 6, I've gone with the 2014 Force India, the only Force India on the list. But I think this one just edges it for me because I really like that white, green and orange one we had in there. I was going to say early days, but 2009 through to, 2013? We had that white, orange and green loveliness. Then they moved to this slightly darker version with elements of black in it. And yeah, this was my favourite. We then went on to a silvery version, which I didn't like as much. And now we got the pink version, the Pink Panther. I think the 2020 Pink Panther's the best one, but I still think the 2014 black, orange, white, green, best one they have done. Top 5, 2018 Ferrari. This was my favourite livery from that particular season, and I think it still holds up. I still miss the glossy Ferrari. I don't dislike the matte Ferrari, but gloss, that scarlet red, just for me, that's what it's got to be. So that's in P5. P4... This, I think, will be one of the biggest surprises on the list. I've gone for the 2019 Haas, the Rich Energy Haas. It was one that I was really disappointed with when it first came out, but when they changed the livery a little bit later on in the latter half of the season, made the shark fin gold, added just a bit more gold really, it got much, much better. And I already miss it. And again, honourable mention to the 2020 Haas. I think it's a real toss of the coin between 2019 and 2020, but I've given it to 2019, but I feel it's one of those ones, once I see it racing, the 2020 Haas, I think I might give it to that. But I have gone with a 2020 car in P3. Sorry to Tomo F1, because I know he's not a big fan of this one. I have gone with the Alpha Tauri. Look, it's a real close tie-up between the Alpha Tauri, the Haas, and the Alfa Romeo for me. Those three, by far, are the best liveries on the 2020 grid. But the matte finish, the almost, I was going to call it yin, I suppose it is kind of yin-yang style of the car. We've got the back end of the car, which is that dark matte navy finish that looks so, so yummy, with hints of white. And then on the front, you've got the opposite. I really, really like it. I love it. That's number 3. Number 2, you probably all expected me to put this number 1 if you've been following the channel for a while, but I've put it number 2. It's the 2013 Lotus. Again, 2012, 2013, I don't mind. Take your pick. Both of them as juicy as the other one. But I slightly prefer this one at the moment. On this particular day, I went with 2013 because I do quite like the little bit of red that's in there. I think it works quite well. I think they did go overboard. 2014, I think there's a little bit too much red. And 2015, I think it was a little bit too naked on the other side of things. A little, well, not enough gold, I suppose, like the 2019 Haas. But I think the 2013 one was just right for me. And again, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know this one's got a bit of sentimental value added with it as well. But number 1, my favourite livery of the decade, and I will always stick to this, it is so underrated as a livery. And if you want to fight me in the comments, please do. The 2017 Sauber. Love it. Nothing wrong with it. As I said, with the Alpha Tauri, I do really like a navy blue car, but this is more of a royal blue, nice and bright. The white looks really good. The gold accents look really, really good. I really, really like it. And that's my number 1. I've wasted a lot of time on that question, so we will swiftly move on, but I really wanted to do that. And I did really enjoy going back through the last 10 years of cars. I may even do that in a bit more long form, maybe a live stream version over the next few weeks, once coursework is out of the way. Don't worry. Question number 2 comes from Lee Bull. I'll go a bit quicker now. Not too much though. I'm trying to keep this a bit more chill these days. Lee asks, if we rule out Lewis, Seb, Max Charles and Daniel Ricciardo, which driver after those could you see winning the title? And by extension, do you think that Norris/Russell are on the level of Max and Charles? Now, I don't know why, but this week I think is the most week of any week. We have had so many Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc questions. This is the only one I've actually included. But it's not, first of all, a lot of you were asking if I think Max and Charles are World Championship potential. Sure, 100% they are. Seb, I still think he's got it in him. Daniel Ricciardo, you all know my thoughts about him. I think he's World Championship material. After those, I think George Russell has definitely got the speed, and I definitely think, although that first year at Williams was pretty awful, wasn't his fault, Lando Norris massively surprised me in 2019. I thought he would struggle a little bit, and whilst it's, you look at the points at the end of the season, it was a fair chunk to Carlos Sainz. Norris, to me, was one of the more unlucky drivers of last season and definitely lost points in France, in Belgium, in Germany. Incidents where he was up there P5 in many of those occasions, but the car let him down. So I definitely think there was enough to prove to me, yeah, he could be World Championship potential there. But yes, I do think Carlos Sainz also could be World Championship potential. Other drivers outside that, I'd love to say Romain Grosjean, but I think it's past his time. If I'm being totally honest, Valtteri Bottas, if he really manages to make another step up like he did last season, as big as step up, so he really needs to elevate his game once again, potentially, but I'm not too sure he's got that potential in him. I think we may have seen the best Bottas last year, but again, I'd love to be proved wrong with all these drivers. Alex Albon had a really strong start to his Red Bull career. But again, all of you will know if you followed the channel for a while, I'm cautious a little bit because that podium wasn't there. But I think his drive in Spa, for me, may even be the drive of the season. You could argue Gasly, Brazil, Sainz, Brazil, but I still think Alex, I think Alex, for me, just off the top of my head anyway, I'm sure I'm going to get pointed out wrong in the comments, but off the top of my head, one of the drives of the season. So if he can keep his development, again, it's only going to be his second year in Formula 1 this season. I don't see why he doesn't have the potential anyway. You know, Max wasn't superstar material when he first jumped into the Red Bull. Despite that victory in his first race, Ricciardo was the better of the two. So I'll give Alex a bit of time. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think the potential is definitely there. Anyone else off the top of my head? Not that I can think of, unless I'm being a dummy. So, and that's very possible. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your question, Lee. But yeah, I'll go Norris, Russell, Sainz, and Albon. Yeah, happy with that. Again, probably forgetting someone. Anyway, moving on. Question number 3 comes from Glenn Robertson. Considering Formula E mostly run on street circuits, are they more at risk of losing races this year than F1? Or does the shorter calendar and more adaptable nature of the sport give Formula E more options once racing returns? Thank you, Glenn, for your question. And whilst I want to stick away from a lot of these questions on a similar basis to this, I don't really want to talk about that at the moment. You don't want to hear it. But I've got to come clean. I don't think I've mentioned Formula E at all since we've had all this fiasco going around. So I'll mention it now. And I think Glenn poses a really good question here because, yeah, Formula E races are not going to be able to go ahead because the vast majority of them, except Mexico, and that could be it, yeah, except Mexico, all of them are on streets, in actual streets. And from my experience of going to Rome last season, literally all they do, and this is pretty straightforward and obvious, they just shut off the roads and whack a circuit down. So yeah, that's going to be very, very difficult to move the calendar around. And Formula E itself, it's a strange calendar. It starts in 2019, so we had our first race in Saudi Arabia in 2019, but it goes through until the summer of 2020. I don't like it, but it's what we've got. That's what it is at the moment. I think they'll change it in the future, but actually I think for this current situation, whilst you're right, it's going to be awkward to rearrange a Rome E-Prix, suddenly move it from April all the way to August. You know, that's going to be very, very difficult, especially in the summer season when tourism's going to be so high, but we want to get racing again. It's going to be difficult. Formula E, though, the kind of card it has up its sleeve is that it runs on a season basis rather than a year basis. So it's not called the 2020 season, it's called Season 6. So very easily, we can just resume racing whenever. So we might get, say, New York and London in July. That could go ahead. That could be the next races. And then we could just tack on what was supposed to be Season 7 just on the end of Season 6. That kind of makes sense. So we start Season 6 in 2019, end it of the summer 2021. That's what I'm envisioning in my head anyway, and I think that flexibility of running it on a season basis allows them to do that. We could go a full year without any racing and still continue the championship, because unlike Formula 1, these cars aren't really developing and evolving over the course of the season, unless teams want to take absolutely ginormous penalties, which Mahindra had to do last time out in Mexico. Was that last time out? It's so long ago now in Formula E. Yeah, last time out, I think it was Mexico, yeah, with Mitch Evans winning. So I'm excited to see what the rest of... Well, I'm excited to see any racing, to be totally honest with you. But I think how they go about this Formula E could be quite unique compared to other racing series. So thank you, Glenn, for that. And I will try my best to keep that as the last question based around current affairs, and we will talk about racing. Thank you for that. That's my Formula E piece covered for a while. Question number 4 comes from Joseph Carrera, is how I'm going to attempt to pronounce it. Apologies. He asks, what is your view on motorsport teams moving to esports while we are not actually racing? Formula 1 using the F1 game, NASCAR, IndyCar using iRacing. Do you think it's positive or negative for the sport? I think we had a question a couple of weeks ago similar to this, but I thought I'd update you on my thoughts because at the time, before we had any of not the Australian Grand Prix, the race doing their thing, Formula 1 have since come out, and like you say in your question, they're now doing virtual Grand Prix, and this weekend they're doing it in Vietnam somehow, but not in the game. But I'm looking forward to that because I have no clue what's going on at the moment. But I think what's changed is that this weekend as well, we've also got several of the actual 2020 drivers taking part. I think we've got both Williams drivers this time round, Latifi and Russell. We've got Norris in the car, Leclerc in the car. Who else have we got? Giovinazzi is also doing it. So we're finally getting more drivers, which is what I wanted to see. And whilst it was great with all the celebrities, I think the race and Veloce were all already doing that. So I didn't really quite understand why Formula 1 were also doing the same thing, if that kind of makes sense. So it's nice that they're getting actual F1 drivers to take part now. So I said a couple of weeks ago, esports isn't really my thing. And I still would agree with that, but I've given it a chance and it's growing on me. And I'm going to tune in to this weekend's race. And it's one of those things where the actual esports season, I didn't really pay attention to. I'll come clean. I find it difficult to watch the esports because I don't really know the particular people. I'm not invested, and I could do a whole spiel about the fact there's no risks involved. All the pit stops are the exact same. You can crash, doesn't matter pretty much because you're not going to retire from the race because it's a game. All that kind of thing. But it's pretty entertaining when there's nothing else on. So at the moment, I think it's perfect. I'm interested to see what the reaction is going to be once we return to racing, what kind of effect that will have on esports. But I think for the moment, especially for a lot of us at home, that we can't really see. Yes, we can watch old events, and I think actually Formula 1 is doing it perfectly at the moment, having some esports races and also showing some race reviews or reruns even. We had, what did we have? What was the first one? We had 2000 and something Brazil. 2016 Brazil, that's what it was. And we had 2014 Bahrain. Then we had 1984 Adelaide, I think. I haven't caught that one just yet. But having that mix, I think is really quite good. And it's keeping us going. So that's my thoughts. Hopefully that's what you're after. I really rambled there and I've completely lost where I'm at. So esports, I've given it a go. It's growing on me. Yeah. Looking forward to more, which I didn't think I'd say a few weeks ago. Thank you for your question. I'm sorry if I have completely gone off on a tangent. But Mailbox is going to be more chill from now on, peeps. Oh, I'm losing it. Right, final question. Question number 5. If you're new around here, you might not know, but it's our audience participation question. Don't get too scared. But if you want to say your thoughts on this question, down in the comment section below is your place to do it. Comes from Mr. Random Guy, and this one really got me thinking. What Formula 1 moment gives you goosebumps every time you rewatch it? I've been watching F1 since 2006, so I've definitely seen my fair share of goosebump moments. The ones that instantly popped out of my head, because if I give it too much thought, it's not really genuine. The one that pops out, obviously, is that Glock. 2008, Hamilton getting the World Championship on the final corner. That is a pretty goose-tingly moment. That's not the phrase, but we'll go with it. But the other one that really jumped out at me, straight away, this one actually, because obviously instantly I thought, is that Glock? But the second one is 2016 Rosberg. When he crossed the line, and I was watching Channel 4 at the time, so it would have been Ben Edwards on commentary. Nico Rosberg is the 2016 World Champion. I really am losing the plot, aren't I? But yeah, that one really does stick out to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was a bit older and I can remember it better. But I think it was just a bit surreal at the time that Hamilton had been so dominant. And finally Rosberg in a race which was so tense. My goodness, either one of them, if they'd have won it, I think it would have been goosebumps. But the fact it was Rosberg, his first world title, yeah, that one, it's a slightly different one, but for me, that's one that will always stick out in my mind. And that's your lot for this week's weekly mailbox. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you've got a question for next week, comment section, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Keep your eyes peeled on the community tab for updates about what I'm going to be doing and when. I'm not really quite too sure myself at the moment, to be totally honest. But as I said at the beginning, I'm working on a few things. I'll try and keep you posted as best as possible. Anyway, stay safe. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.